Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraya Nashprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sivaya Bhavatirthamashloke Bhakte Bhavate Nashaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatadri Shatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gautase Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. We welcome everyone for today's Bhagavatam class. We are reading from 4th canto, 28th chapter, 28th verse. Title of the chapter, Purañjana becomes a woman in the next life. Radhamani is still continuing the allegory here, which started with Puranjan, and now Puranjan living a life, um, at times sinful life. Discussion of he killing animals was discussed, and then getting materially attached to his family, his possessions and wealth and whatnot. Finally becoming old and realizing at the face of death, everyone have left him. And there was one beautiful statement. The God realization for atheists, death or bhaya is a God realization for the atheists at the face of death. And now he has died. So the process of transmigration was discussed. Text number 27 said, due to his contaminated association with woman, a living entity like King Puranjan eternally suffers all the pangs of material existence and remains in the dark region of material life. Bereft of all remembrance for many, many years. And text number 28 talks about the process of transmigration. Tame Vamanasagrenan Babuva Pramadottama Anantaram Vidarbhasya Rajasimhasya Vaishmani Ameva Manasa Grahanan Babuva Pramadottama Anantaram Vidarbhasya Rajasimhasya Vaishmani Tameva Manasa Grahanan Babuva Pramadottama Anantaram Vidarbhasya Rajasimhasya Vishmani. Translation, please.
King Puranjana gave up his body while remembering his wife, and consequently, in his next life, he became a very beautiful and well situated woman. He took his next birth as the daughter of King Vidarbha in the very house of the king.
So Prabhupada, beautiful Prabhupada writes. And he begins to talking about. So now the transmigration is being discussed. So there's not one life, there is a continuous series. So you can say, at least what we know of, episode 2 of Puranjana Netflix series. So that's what's going to happen. Puranjana takes birth as a lady because he was too attached to his wife. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tayatyante kalevam tam tam evaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavita. Prabhupada quotes this verse, the process of transmigration. And then Prabhupada writes in the purport, if you just proceed ahead, you'll see before that Prapya Punya Kritam Lokan verse, two lines before. Consequently, although he took the form of a woman, he was given a chance to be the daughter of the powerful king. And Prabhupada quotes, Prapya Punya Kritam Lokan Ushitva Shashvati Samaha Suchinam Shimitam Ge Yoga Brashta Bijayat. Please read from there until the end of the purport.
The unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy.
Continue.
If a person falls from the path of bhakti yoga, God realization, due to attachment to creative activity, philosophical speculation, or mystic yoga, he is given a chance to take birth in a high and rich family. The higher authorities appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead thus render justice to the living entity according to living entity's desires. Although King Puranjana was overly absorbed in thoughts of his wife and thus became a woman, he took birth in the family of a king due to his previous pious activities.
So this is just not something कहते हैं, once upon a time happened accidentally to somebody. This is something which has happened to all of us. I don't want to frighten each one of us, but you're here in this particular body. There must be a reason why you have this body. Why particular form, physique, and all that. Maybe a woman in last life attached to a boyfriend, maybe a husband, maybe an extramarital affair. God knows what we had, and then we ended up in this body. And now in this body, after having a new life, new opportunity, I would continue not a new life. After having another opportunity, now we are eager for another relationship. And then again quit the body, thinking about that relationship, or maybe in these days extramarital affair and whatnot, and then become what would be the next possible life then? Huh? Huh, that is possible if in case we, I mean, all of us, yeah, in that case, because we're practicing devotee, at least we'll get a human form of life. So at least we'll be safe from the hellish condition that way. So this is what the cycle is goes on. I remember when I for the first time read the 8th chapter, verse number 6, Yam Yam Vapi Smaran Bhava. I was looking myself in the mirror. मैं क्या सोचते हुए मरा था पिछले जन्म में I got this wrong. So something to think about it when these stories are given. We are here in this body. Don't take it lightly. Please continue.
The conclusion is that all our activities are taken into consideration before we are awarded another body. Narad Muni therefore advised Vyasdev that one should take to Krishna consciousness, devotional service, and abandon all ordinary occupational duties. This advice was also given by Lord Krishna himself. Although a devotee may fall from the path of spiritual consciousness, he will nonetheless attain a human body in the form of a devotee or a rich man. In this way, one can resume his devotional service.
Yeah, that's what Narmani says to Vyasa. Tyaktva sudharmam charanam bhujam hare bhajan apakvata pate tato yadi. What is there? Even if your bhajan have not become pakka, there is no loss. You continue from where you left. And the human form of life is guaranteed. Either the rich family or born in the family of a devotee. Being born in the family of devotee, we understand. There would be a spiritual culture. But what is the idea that being born in a rich family, how it can help us in uh, continue our spiritual life? Born in a family of devotee, obvious spiritual culture from childhood. But what about a rich family. I mean, they may or may not necessarily have a spiritual culture. Yes? Mike. Let's take a mic.
In that case, we need not to worry about basic necessities of life.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about roti, kapda, makan. Khali पेट भजन ना हो खाना something खाना लाला गोपाला खाली पेट या भूखे पेट भजन ना हो गोपाला. That's the idea. I mean, look at therefore Prabhupada said Krishna consciousness, simple living, high thinking, and you can see that as we proceed through this process. So now this uh, Vaidharbi, what's her name? Vidarbha, Vaidharbi, the daughter of Vidarbha, she's going to get married to a very advanced devotee. That is how the process of going back to God will be described. So there in this discussion, we'll see when they took to the path of renunciation or vanaprastha, how they lived a very simple life. If our mind is too much caught up with the worries of roti kapna makan, we can't really practice Krishna consciousness. This is one of the other thing, just to counteract those who say ISKCON movement is only for rich people, because those who are not well-to-do, it's very difficult for them to take to bhakti because they're too much worried about their sustenance. So basic sustenance has to be there. And I don't want to get into Varnashrama, and that's the beauty of Varnashrama. It will make sure everyone has basic necessities. The responsibility of the king, the good king, was to ensure everyone is provided with basic necessity and they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to exert themselves to get some basic necessities. When system collapses, when a people have to struggle for basic necessities. And if you look in the current times, literally everyone is struggling. Everyone's struggling for fresh air, everyone is struggling for good quality water, good food and whatnot. So that's the idea. Therefore, the environment is so polluted in a way, even if you have money and wealth, we can't really still guarantee our well-being. We just had an instance in COVID times. Even people who had wealth, they struggled to get a hospital bed. The well-being was really challenged. So text number 22 now. Please continue translation.
It was fixed that Vaidarbhi, daughter of King Vidarbha, was to be married to a very powerful man, Malayadwaja, an inhabitant of the Pandu country.
So this is not a real story. The names are also not real. This is an allegory. So every name has a meaning. Malaya Dhwaj. Malaya refers to mountain. Dhwaja, fixed or a flag. Malaya Dhwaj means was fixed up in determination. Prabhupada gives another meaning. One who can convince others through his propaganda. So Malaya Dhwaj refers to a devotee here who does not get carried away by others' point of view, but who converts or influences others. That's the idea. Text number 30. The family life will be described here. Continue.
King Maladwaja fathered one daughter who had a very black eyes. He also had 7 sons, who later became rulers of that tract of land known as Dravida. Thus, there were 7 kings in that land.
So, what is the 7 sons and a daughter with black eyes refers to? This refers to daughter, refers to Bhakti Lata. And the 7 sons refers to the 7 processes of devotional service. Shavanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasivanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. Now, why the 2 others are not mentioned, Sakyam and Atma Nivedanam? That develops in Raganuga Bhakti. So why Narada Muni is saying 7 sons? Because that is something which is possible in sadhaka stage also. So these two will happen later on. So 7 sons and a daughter with a very black eye that refers to Bhakti Latha. And the 7 sons refers to Shavanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Shavanam Kirtanam, Smaranam Padasevanam, Archanam Vandanam, Dasyam. Sakyam Atma Nivedan have not happened. Prabhupada explains in the Purport. Text number 31. Continue.
My dear king,
They're going to be very beautiful purports. Very beautiful purport. We'll take a look at those. Let's move forward.
my dear king,
प्राचीनी वरिष्ठ
प्राचीनी
इतना समय
वरिष्ठ,
हो गया इस कैरेक्टर को अब तो समझ जाओ यार.
my dear king, Prachini Varishad, the sons of Malayadwaja gave birth to the many thousands and thousands of sons, and all of these have been protecting the entire world up to the end of one Manu's lifespan, and even afterward.
Yeah, so sons gave birth to like this. So Prabhupada is explaining that all of these have been Krishna consciousness is eternal, not a new movement. All of these have been protecting the entire world up to the end of one Manu's lifespan and even afterward. So this is the idea that he had So many thousands and thousands, all of these have been protecting the entire world. That refers to Vaishnavas. So Prabhupada is making a point of the purport. Vaishnava is not some new cult. ISKCON is not new cult. Vaishnavism has been from the beginning of time. Text number 32.
The great sages
The
named
stage.
the great sage named Agastya married the firstborn daughter of Maladhyaja, the avowed devotee of Lord Krishna. From her one son was born, whose name was Dudachyuta, and from him another son was born, whose name was Idha Mabha.
So again the allegory, we're just going through the allegory here. The Muni. So Agastya Muni here is not the Agastya Muni that we know of, the great sage. Here Agastya Muni refers to mind. So Agastya Muni refers here to mind. And Agastya means, Muni means mind. Agastya means whose senses does not act independently. Manashashan Indriyani, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So mind is a focal point. Mind controls the senses that way. Agastya Muni, like that. So from Bhakti Lata, the son. So what is it mentioned? The great firstborn daughter. So who was the firstborn daughter of Malayadhvaj? Bhakti Lata. And who is the son of Bhakti Lata? Drad Achyuta. And from Drad Achyuta, the next son, Idamaha Vaha is born. The word Idmaha Vaha refers to one who carries wood for burning in a sacrifice when approaching a spiritual master. The point is that, I'm reading the last paragraph. Bhakti Lata, the cult of devotion, fixes one in his spiritual position. One so fixed never comes down, and he begets children who are strict followers of Shastric injunction. Text number 33. Mhm.
After this, the great saintly king Malayadhwaja divided his entire kingdom among his sons. Then, in order to worship Lord Krishna with full attention, he went to a solitary place known as
So what is happening with
Kulachala.
King Maladhaja? For he got married, begot sons, they begot sons, which means it refers to preaching mission. I know you opened one center, then you open another center, and preaching spread. Like Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur opened, Gaudiya Math, Prabhupada opened, ISKCON all over the world. And then after doing preaching work for most part of his life, and then this individual or devotee decides to retire. Retire to what? He went to a solitary place known as Kulachal. What is a solitary place refers to here in case of Maladhvaj? He went to perform Nirjan Bhajan. And then Prabhupada had a beautiful purport about Nirjan Bhajan. So these are the things, if you want, if you have a Bhagavatam with you, then you can write down the title Nirjan Bhajan. If you ever have to speak or refer to Nirjan Bhajan, this is where Prabhupada is quoting. So, this is how you become authorized, in the sense you're repeating the words. So, what is our Acharya's point of view on Nirjan Bhajan? For all of us, Prabhupada mentions. Reading from the 5th line in the purport. In other words, when disciples are grown up and are able to preach, the spiritual master should retire and sit down in a solitary place to write and execute Nirjan Bhajan. Bhaktivinoda Thakur did that. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur did that. In case of Srila Prabhupada, he also kind of did that. In the last 1 month, he was kind of grounded. He couldn't move, and he continued translating. Of course, there could be a little difference in the mood. It's a generic statement, not that this is the principle. Should retire and sit down in a solitary place to write and execute Nirjan Bhajan. This means sitting silently in a solitary place and executing devotional service. This Nirjan Bhajan, which is a silent worship of the Lord, is not possible for a neophyte devotee. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur never advised a neophyte to go to a solitary place to engage in devotional service. Indeed, he has written a song, Dushtamana Tumi Kishera Vaishnava, Pratishta Haratare, Nirjanera Ghare, Tava Harinam Kevala Kaitava. My dear mind, what kind of devotee are you? Simply for cheap adoration, you sit in a solitary place and pretend to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But this is all cheating. Thus, Bhaktivedanta Swami Thakur advocated that every devotee, under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, preach the Bhakti cult. Please read from there. Krishna consciousness all over the world. Where's the mic?
Krishna consciousness all over the world. Only when one is mature can he sit in a solitary place and retire from preaching all over the world. Following this example, the devotees of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness now render service as preachers in the various parts of the world. Now they can allow the spiritual master to retire from active preaching work. In the last stage of the spiritual master's life, the devotees of the spiritual master should take preaching activities into their own hands. In this way, the spiritual master can sit down in a solitary place and render.
So it is seen sometimes neophytes, Kanishta. These are all the symptoms that consequence of Kanishta stage. Sometimes they romanticize and they think, oh, if I can go to Mayapur and just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, day and night, I'll be engaged in Harinam Sankirtan. I would just chant. Maybe I can go to Vrindavan. I like the Goswamis. I'll wander in the forest. It looks so beautiful, isn't it? Particularly for all of you in IT world, it'll be so beautiful. Just free from all the cumbersome, all kind of anxiety, wander in the forest. And as we know the stories of the Goswamis, they were taken care by the Lord. But we forget, they didn't got gulab jamun once in a week. They had no Sunday feast. Now, once you end up there, and then you realize, no hot chapati. What is Bengali favorite? Not bonta, not Sunday. वो क्या कहते हैं? Fried items. They eat a lot of fried items, ना? Bangan bhaji. No bangan bhaji to eat. They eat every. You go to Mayapur, Gita Bhavan, I believe, where every afternoon they serve bangan bhaja, na? Like this. And I used to wonder why this bangan bhaja fixed. Then I got to know it's a favorite item of Bengali. They have to have some one fried item. At the end, they'll bring the bangan bhaja like this. No bangan bhaja. Or what are your Maharashtrian? What is Maharashtrian item? नहीं वो क्या हम बात कर रहे थे अभी गोविंदास के लिए अपने दे ईट स्नैक आइटम बटाटा बड़ा समथिंग लाइक दैट पाव बड़ा पाव नो बड़ा पाव फॉर यू तो सारे सपने टूट जाएंगे सो आइडिया इज एट द कनिष्ठ स्टेज पर्सन थिंग्स डूइंग सर्विस इज एंजाइटी बट निर्जन भजन is enjoyment because nobody is there to tell me. So, what is the idea for a Kanishta is he doesn't want to take responsibility. He wants to run away from responsibility. And Bhagavad Gita begins with give up irresponsible action, perform responsible action. That is dharma. And we are trying to practice parodharma. What is parodharma? Not responsible action alone. Parodharma is to follow the will of the Lord. What is the will of the Lord? Proposed in 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Nimittamatman bhavasavasachni, that verse and the next verse purport. Following the will of the Lord means following the will of the spiritual master. And that is a point which is mentioned here. What is the process? First, serve under the guidance, expert guidance. Both rights and the purport. Thus, Bhakti Siddhanta Swami Thakur advocated that every devotee under the guidance of an expert spiritual master preach the bhakti cult. That's the idea. And engage in devotional service. So, not to artificially quit, not quit, romanticize the idea. Now, what is the other aspect of it in Kanishta stages? Becoming loner even in Vaishnava Sangha. Now, some may have a psychophysical nature where, maybe an introvert and so forth. That is okay. But still, in devotional life, being too introvert will not work. If you are in the Vaishnava association, if you don't mingle with devotees, mingle means, I'm not talking about prajalpa. Machita madgata prana bodhyanta parasparam. Another quality of a Kanishta is Kanishtha, neophyte. So, as described, oftentimes speaker says neophyte means such Kanishtas have a special caliber. They find new, innovative reasons to fight or create fight amongst devotees. They're very expert in fault finding. Somehow, even if there is something good, they cannot really see that. They'll find faults in it. So this is not what I'm talking about association. That's not a good association. Okay, let me point out this. How many of you have an experience? There are certain association when you come in contact with them, uh, they may speak Krishna Kathan, but the moment given an opportunity for them to express their heart, they start with fault finding. Have you noticed? They'll become critical. That's so no. Some of you have noticed, not everyone noticed, right? They become critical. Oftentimes the question comes, and oftentimes everybody asks, what to do? What would you do if you're in that situation? We're not talking about that as an association. Association is defined as much chitta madgata prana bodhyanta parasmaram. Bhagavan Prabhu in those days used to say, when he was serving as a guest department in charge, He said once His Holiness Sachinandan Maharaj called. I mean, I believe Maharaj was visiting the temple. So when Maharaj called while going to for some service, so he told, all right, before we talk about Seva, first you share something about Krishna. First you share, then we'll talk about Seva. So Prabhu used to make a point that one thing that he learned from that interaction with Maharaj is Maharaj will make sure, first you think about Krishna positively and then engage in service. Otherwise, while living together now, we entirely forget about Krishna. The only thing, such individuals who we just referring to, they only remember is seeing faults in others. How many of you, when you have heard such critics of faults, have you wondered, यार मुझे तो नहीं दिखता तुझे क्यों इतना दिखता है? How many of you have wondered? Please raise your hand. When you have been around with such people, I mean, they're critical, and your thought has come, why are you seeing all these things? I have never seen this, and it feels like this person is just creating something which does not exist, hallucinating. Please raise your hand. How many of you have noticed? So how do you deal with it? Now, for that person, because he's in so much bodily consciousness, this is what means by bodily consciousness. So much caught up by his mind, somewhere, how he wants things to happen, things are not happening. The way things, the devotees should tell him, Prabhuji, please sit. We have got a bigger asana for you. Prabhuji, and should massage my ego, massage my body, should serve me and whatnot. And the moment the ego is hurt because they have been corrected and rectified, this person becomes emotionally too disturbed. Cannot have an iota of regret or realization that I've done a mistake, but becomes. And I've had those experiences. I remember in the beginning days when we started a center, one devotee really became erratic, one individual. If I'll tell him turn left, he would hear turn right. Communication became so difficult. And I always give a credit to that devotee because of my interaction with him. And that was the first time I was doing all this preaching and all that when I had come back to India. And after observing him, then I realized what Krishna means by mind. And because of my interaction with him, came up the mind management course. The whole mind management course came just because I was so perturbed and disturbed. What is going on? I'm telling turn left. And he would hear turn right. I said, how is it possible? I had never had that experience. And and I had to function with this. And he was a senior guy among all of the boys who had joined. And now he has become so empty. He had all emotional gimmicks and whatnot. This is where the problem, when you read about, when it is said woman is less intelligent because of this emotional thing. Then there is no logic, there's no rationality. And similarly, when a man, acts on the platform emotions, you're like the same woman which has been described. So it's not about the gender, it is about your psychophysical nature. Do you have a psychophysical nature of a man, of rationality or logic, or you have a psychophysical nature of a woman, which means you're emotionally regulated? If your emotions are a little bit agitated, for example, one thing which is described about the woman, again, I'm not indicating on the gender, if in case there is certain, let's say, sorry, that's my ringtone. Some message came. Okay, anyways, I got distracted. What was I saying? For example, how many of you, I mean, you're not married, but let's say some of you are married, but you might have noticed with your mother, for instance, suddenly if there is a little argument, suddenly she'll pick up something from the ancient history. 15 साल पहले याद है तुमने क्या कहा था? How many of you had that experience? And then you're wondering, अरे क्या चल रहा है यार? दुनिया बदल गई, generation बदल गई. This is what emotions do. And why this neophyte, why it is said to be Kanishta, and why we are stuck at Kanishta stage? Because we are too much regulated by our emotions. This person, just cannot, his ego is so hurt. Even if something good happens, मुझे पता है इन्होंने अच्छा क्यों करा है. इनकी साजिश है इसके पीछे. ये ऐसा नहीं होना चाहते वैसे. Have you heard this conversation? I'm always wondering, यार दुनिया में कुछ तो अच्छा होता है. कभी तो अच्छा होगा. अब सूर्य अस्त हो गया इसका मतलब थोड़ी ना सूर्य उदय नहीं होगा. और अब सूर्य उदय हो गया तो तू इसलिए बोल रहा है सूर्य उदय मुझे पता है क्यों हुआ है. Sunrise have only happened because of this reason. This is their mentality. Baba, sunrise have not happened for any reason. Sunrise happens because it has to happen. That's the will of the Lord. It is not dependent on you. So such people This is bodily consciousness. They make the world center around them. So they think other person, whatever he or she is doing because something has to do with me. And this is what these are just the consequences of bodily consciousness. So, so if you are in such a situation, what will you do? How would you deal with this Kanishta? Land you here and hear critical katha? Hari katha to dur rahi. You can't really expect Hari katha from them. That will not happen. There's so much filled with I. Only I will come out. The complaints. So what will you do? Any solution? Because everyone have faced it. I have also faced it. Every community, everywhere it will be because somebody somehow will be upset. Ego will be hurt. Yeah.
First, we will try to hear, like we pretend to hear that we are hearing, and after that, we can change the topic.
Okay. Thank you for that. Anything else? How would you deal with it? Yes, please.
Either we can become silent or we can walk away.
We can become silent and walk away. Okay. What else? Any inputs from online audience?
If he's doing some mouth mongering, if he's doing mouth mongering for that particular devotee, so we can just glorify that devotee in front of him like that.
Okay. What else? I think no, that's okay. Any other thing? Yes, सबने सुना है किसी पे सॉल्यूशन नहीं है मजा ले रहे हो हाँ आप लोग को भी मजा आता है सुनने में इसका मतलब so one Kanishta enjoys the other Kanishta's fault finding और उसको लगता है हाँ देखो समझ गए सब लोग वो ऐसी ही गलत है तभी तो सॉल्यूशन तभी none of you thinking that there should be some solution for it there is a need for solution looks like we are enjoying critical katha any other thing yes refer them to seniors जाके बम फोड़ो सीनियर के सामने ठीक है नेक्स्ट जल्दी जल्दी
In devotee association, the devotees are the only shelter and hope for other devotee. So if a devotee genuinely has some problem, so like other devotees only should listen. So like my thinking is that we should not avoid them like he's doing prajalpa and all. Instead, we should come up with mature dealing. Like how
yeah so that is what I'm asking what is your mature dealing
mature dealing is like we should hear it first of all, like not ignoring it completely and not like giving
so
a
one point is when you hear faults your consciousness will become immediately contaminated so according to Shastra it is completely prohibited this is called asasanga and there is a culture of expressing grievance we're not talking about expressing grievance the discussion is fault finding grievance is there is a way to share just like Dhruva Maharaj. Narad Muni said, my dear Dhruva, this is a time for you to play. This is not the time for do tapasya. Go back. How did Dhruva Maharaj? Dhruva Maharaj didn't like what Narad Muni said. What did Dhruva said? My dear Narad Muni, I totally appreciate you. I respect you. But your instruction does not resonate with my heart. Is there any fault finding? There is no fault finding. This is a very clear communication. If you wish to help me and guide me, I am very determined about what I want to do. If you wish to guide me, please help me how I can fulfill my purpose. Otherwise, I appreciate your guidance. I respect you who you are, but your instruction does not resonate with my heart. He just did not like what Nadmuni said. He totally disagreed. But there is a way. So this idea that we should hear, not at all. We should definitely not hear. Because the moment you hear, because it is coming from such a contaminated consciousness filled with envy. The major part is envy. Why a person do fault finding is envy. Is that rooted into that? And now from that envious heart, you're hearing about other person. Your consciousness is going to become contaminated. Now, if in case, as he's mentioning, we should hear, then you should make sure when you hear, you should draw a line. If you understand this person is going on into that, then the second thing is you ask him to, Prabhu, let me give you another side of the story. This is also the part of that character. This is also the part of that personality. So that you show him, you change his perspective. So again, I've been speaking about the word darshan. Right now, this person has got a wrong darshan of the community, a wrong darshan of the devotee. For whatever reason, his ego is hurt and whatnot. Or his sense gratificatory plans are not going the way he would want it to be. We all have come from different background. We have own different perspectives and reasons why we are sitting here now. So we have to change his darshan, how he's seeing the person. If you allow yourself hearing to that thing, your heart will become contaminated. So this idea of hearing is never advisable. If it is fault finding, if the person is saying Prabhu without pointing to a person, if he's just sharing his concern, that is a different thing. But if he's pointing to a person, and that thing we should never allow that. That's not a good. If you have the ability to counteract and bring the positive light about that person, then do that. If you don't have the capacity, you should say, Prabhu, let's talk about something. And if you have the actual grievance, if you have genuine grievance, then why don't you go to the authority? Now, such individuals would not go to the authority also. I have always observed that. When I had my dealings, I often get to face a situation in ashram. I get to hear, even with Grahasthas back at NVCC, they'll share things like that. So if I tell them, okay, it looks like you have a genuine concern, let's go to the concerned person. If you want, I can connect, I can arrange a meeting. नहीं 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 वो जरूरत नहीं है क्यों वो सुनेगा नहीं कभी look at this, what has happened to an individual. So this is not expressing grievance. This person, his heart is filled with so much envy, his ego is so hurt, he just want to do bad mouthing. And if you're going to tend to hear to such people, what do you think is going to happen to your consciousness? It's not advisable. If a person is genuinely concerned, has genuine concern, he would say, yes, Prabhu, let's go and talk. This is what my concern is. Why don't we talk about it? Dhruva Maharaj didn't say, okay, Naradmuni, thank you. I'll do what you say, and walked away. And then he found some people in the forest and he said, this Naradmuni, I did not even call him. बेवजह में मेरे जीवन में आके मुझे सलाह दे रहा है होता कौन है ये This is what we do. So this is where the complexity and duplicity of behavior comes out. So we have to be careful of that. I don't know why did I came to this topic, because this is something which happens too often. So we started discussing on that. Is that okay? So what are the solution for that? Is the person, see, these are the psyche of such individuals. Again, I said, it is not that once in a while they will speak. Please know that. And you can reflect on your relationship with such individuals. It is not that once in a while they will speak. The moment they get an opportunity to speak, this is what is going to come from their mouth. How many of you agree? If you can think of any person who have done that. Yes or no? That is not a grievance. This is their psychophysical nature. They're critical. They're fault finders. The moment they get an opportunity to speak, they would just speak like this. They are destroying their bhakti lata, and they're going to destroy the bhakti lata of those who are going to hear. So for such people, either you maintain a distance, or else if you are their well-wisher and you have the capacity, then try to give them the better understanding of how. And if in case they begin to argue, नहीं 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 तुम्हें नहीं पता क्या होता है तुम्हें क्या पता तुम तो बच्चे हो अभी तुमसे 5 दिन बाद आए थे मैं 5 दिन पहले आया तो मैंने ज़्यादा दुनिया देखी है मैं बताता हूँ दुनिया कैसी होती है मैं लंबे समय से रह रहा हूँ इस समाज में इस कम्युनिटी में करके if you find that person is to be adamant, best course of action is keep a distance from him. I would say warn the society about him. Such a person should be maintained a distance because these people are the one, the saying goes, one bad apple destroys the bucket of apple. This is that. They're just going to go and do bad mouthing and they destroy the whole culture about it. These are things we can't take care. And the good news is, or the bad news is, we have no scarcity of such individuals. Every place have Kanishta. And at some point of time in our life, we also had been in that role. We had also played that role to a little extent. Some continue for long, some do it for a short while, but we all have been into that situation. That's the part of growth. All right, text number 34. Please continue.
Just as moonshine follows the moon at night, immediately after King Malay Dhwaja departed for Kulachal, his devoted wife, whose eyes were very enchanting, followed him, giving up all homely happiness despite family and children.
So there's a beautiful word, Madirakshana. Madirakshana, one meaning could be the eyes getting intoxicated after drinking liquor. Other meaning is the eyes becoming intoxicated by seeing darshan of the Lord. Madarikshanha. So what is mentioned here now is Maladhwaja takes to Vanaprastha ashram and the wife follows behind the husband. So in terms of this is again an allegory. So in terms of a guru and disciple, when guru decides to go to Nirjan Bhajan, so some senior disciples follows behind him to take care of him. Next verse, 35, 36.
In the province of Kulachala, there were rivers named Chandravasa, Tamaraparni, and Vatodaka. King Malayadhwaja used to go to those pious rivers regularly and take his bath there. Thus he purified himself externally and internally. He took his bath and ate bulbs, seeds, leaves, flowers, roots, fruits.
So like that, he lived his simple life. He performed austerities. Now the beauty of the purport. Purports are very interesting. Let's read the purport. Continue, read it quickly.
We
So
can
first saying purport, so if you want, you can highlight this purport. This is about bodily weight. Prabhupada writes, we can definitely see that to advance in Krishna consciousness, one must control his bodily weight. Can you imagine Prabhupada goes to what extent? All right, let's read. If one becomes too fat,
it is to be
loudly.
if one becomes too fat, it is to be assumed that he is not advancing spiritually.
Interesting. I'm not saying Prabhupada is writing. It is not. Okay, why? Prabhupada gives a reason.
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur severely criticized his fat disciples. The idea is that one who intends to advance in Krishna consciousness must not eat very much. Devotees who used to go to
So I understand you might be thinking, Prabhuji, ये तो सही नहीं है. I know a fellow who eats double and triple of my diet, but is still like a yogi baba. I eat half and immediately gain weight. Well, that is a physical issue. That's okay. But the principle is overeating should be avoided. That is the point. Those rest of us are in a normal category. This is an extreme category where somebody eats, does not gain any weight, and somebody eats even little, gains a lot of weight. So that's an extreme situation. But all of us are most of us in normal category. Overeating should not be done. That's the idea. And what is that? One should only eat Krishna Prasad, nothing else. One should fast on Ekadashi, appearance at the Sukha's days, like that. And Prabhupada writes, Govinda. All of these are meant to decrease. You see that below? All of these are meant to decrease the fat within the body.
all of these are meant to decrease the fat within the body so that one will not sleep more than desired and one will not become inactive and lazy. Overindulgence in food will cause a man to sleep more than required. This human form of life is meant for austerity, and austerity means controlling sex, food intake, etc. In this way, time can be saved for spiritual activity and one can purify himself both externally and internally. Thus, both body and mind can be cleansed.
So Prabhupada is not doing a body shaming to somebody who's fat and whatnot. It's about preventing overindulgence. So overindulgence in food does what? It excessive. Then excessive sleep does what? Laziness. And what laziness does? No time for sadhana. And then we very attentively sleep in the class. As some of you seems to be practicing that now, right now. All right. Next, 37.
Through austerity, King Malayadhwaja in body and mind gradually became equal to the dualities of cold and heat, happiness and distress, wind and rain, hunger and thirst, the pleasant and the unpleasant. In this way, he conquered all relatives.
Prabhupada writes in the purport, such kind of austerities are not possible in this age. And Prabhupada, of course, 14th chapter, verse number 26, engaged in bhakti, profound bhakti, and whatever prescribed austerities in the path of bhakti, following morning program, fasting on certain special days, etc., chanting the 16 hours of Hare Krishna Mahamata, that is enough for this age. Text number 38. Next, continue. Quick. We can read 3-4 translations quickly.
Text 38. By worshipping, executing austerities, and following the regulative principles, King Malayadhwaja conquered his senses, his life, and his consciousness. Thus, he fixed everything on the central point of the Supreme
Next.
Brahman. 39. In this way, he stayed immovable in one place for 100 years by the calculation of the demigods. After this time, he developed pure devotional attraction for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and remain fixed in
So
its
here Narad Muni is
purpose.
explaining a story and giving direction to Prachani Bharishad or Varishad. If you take this path, this is what's going to happen to you. And the kind of story continues. Text number 40. So in other words, he's indicating Bharishad, you have overindulged, no time for renunciation. Take to Vanaprastha and follow the footsteps of Malayadhwaj. Text number 40.
King Malayadhwaj attained perfect knowledge by being able to distinguish the super soul from the
Okay.
individual soul.
So now he attained perfect knowledge, is able to distinguish between Atma and Paramatma. Proper, that's beautiful purport again. There are two types of Mayavadi philosophers. This is always a big question, so I'm pointing out to puppet. You can highlight it also for yourself. So people are confused why there are so much differences in Mayavadis. There are two types of Mayavadi philosophers. One who is coming from Shankaracharya, other following the Buddhistic philosophy. Therefore, there are little variations. The followers of the Buddhist philosophy and the followers of the Shankara philosophy. What is this? Prabhupada. Ashish, please read the followers of Buddha. In the purport we are reading.
The followers of Buddha do not recognize that there is anything beyond the body. The followers of Shankara conclude that there is no separate existence of the Paramatma.
So what is the difference here is, so Buddhism philosophy is annihilism. After the body ends, is Shunya. That's called Shunyavadi. And what is Mayavadi? Is about merging. We become one with Parabrahman. Or there is no difference between us and Parabrahman. That's the idea. So now with this, if you get this clarity, now you look at all the modern day Babas, they'll fall either of the category. Either they'll be promulgating or propagating Shankara side of philosophy, Aap bhi Bhagwan, Hum bhi Bhagwan, Sab Bhagwan, or else they'll be talking a lot on the bodily consciousness, healthy body, enjoy senses, gratified and whatnot. After body ends, there's nothing after body ends. In Buddhism, there is no clarity after what happens after death. So what they speak about is Buddha comes back. So who reincarnates? Only one person. That is Buddha. So Dalai Lama, what they call the concept of it, is Buddha. And they selected at the age of 5 or something through astrology and whatnot. So they said only Buddha is reincarnating. Why is he reincarnating? I don't know why he's reincarnating. I know at least there is a concept of salvation in other Abrahamic tradition, resurrection, salvation, and whatnot. What they call it? Judgment Day. You know, those of you who have seen Terminator movie, you will understand the Judgment Day. If you have not understood Abrahamic philosophy, that was a movie about Judgment Day. So that's the idea. So okay, you got this clear? The Shankarites believe that the individual soul is identical with Paramatma. And then Prabhupada talks the Vaishnava philosophy, that is different. Text number 41. Please go ahead.
In this way, King Maladhwaja attained perfect knowledge because in his pure state he was directly instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By means of such enlightening transcendental knowledge, he could understand everything from all angles of vision.
So 41 talks about, as we were discussing yesterday, at advanced stage, the devotee must be able to, should be in a state to speak with the Lord directly. So we discussed that point yesterday, if you remember. So this is what happened with Malayadhwaj. In advanced stage, he was able to connect with Paramatma directly. And we also discussed, so what is the transition stage? Now at our stage, we cannot interact with Paramatma because of our own anarthas, we are not able to connect with him. So what happens? Prabhupada writes in the purport about the same thing, which we discussed yesterday. There's a purport, one of the rare purports where Prabhupada talks about Chaitya Guru. Second paragraph. The Lord is the super soul seated in everyone's heart, and he acts as the Chaitya Guru, the spiritual master within. So that same Lord manifests externally as Chaitya Guru. Text number 42. Please continue.
King Maladhwaja could thus observe that the super soul was sitting by his side and that he, as the individual soul, was sitting by the side of the super soul. Since both were together, there was no need for separate interest. Thus,
So at this point of time, this is again the process, what happens. At this point of time, the principle of Ekatvam manifests. What is the principle of Ekatvam, which is discussed largely in Vedas, and we read about in Ishopanishad also. Ekatvam means now they have a common interest. Not common interest, one interest. Common interest means both the parties have two other interests. No, there's only one interest. Now the living entity perfectly aligns with the Lord. So in that way they become one. One in interest, not one in identity. Whereas Mayavad is confused Ekatvam as one in identity, which means Atma has merged with Paramatma. No, it never merges. It is Ekatvam means one in interest. Now the living entity has no other interest than just to fulfill the interest or align with the interest of the Lord. So interest of the Lord is the interest of Atma. For example, let's see in relationship of a boyfriend and girlfriend. When a boy falls in love with a girl, so let's say they have to go out for a dinner. So boy would not suggest where. Whatever girl says, yes. I mean, I assume this is what will happen. So still there too, but in interest one. So then the girlfriend, so he'll ask the girlfriend, what should we have for dinner? Pav bhaji or masala dosa? The girlfriend said, masala dosa. Boyfriend smiles, yes, masala dosa. At least starting का कुछ दिन होता है ऐसे होगा, right? I mean, I'm assuming like that. So, right, this is ekatma, one in interest, but still there are two distinct purposes. That's the idea. There's no other interest. So that gives the greatest satisfaction. That is the point here. Okay. Text number 43. Please continue. Now, text number 43 onwards, discussion is about the attitude of a disciple towards Guru. Here, the discussion about would be Vaidharvi. How did she serve Malaya Dhwaj? Please continue.
The daughter of King Vidarbha accepted her husband all in all as that supreme. She gave up all sensual enjoyment and in complete renunciation followed the principles of her husband, who was so advanced, thus she remained engaged in his service.
So Prabhupada is talking about Vapu and Vani Seva. These are the two ways we can serve our spiritual master. Next. And in these verses, Prabhupada is also talking about husband-wife relationship. I'm not going into that because that's another tangent to discuss about it. All of you can read it on your level. Or maybe we can have a discussion with the congregation separate for that. Text number 44, continue.
The daughter of King Vidarbha wore old garments, and she was lean and thin because of her vows of austerity.
So you will not find any character performing, austerity was fat. Kardamuni, lean. Wife Devuti, lean. So Prabhupada therefore said, overweight. Those who are overweight, they should be careful. So, I mean, it's true actually. Imagine if there's an overweight brahmachari. What is the first thought will come to the mind? मजे ले रहा है जीवन के मजे ले रहे हैं. So no, it's actually, we should be a little bit in control like that. Whatever you do, congregation will definitely pass a comment. Prabhu enjoys, he's enjoying prasada. So to avoid that, simple. Please continue reading translation.
Since she did not arrange her hair, it became entangled and twisted in locks. Although she remained always near her husband, she was as silent and unagitated as the flame of an
So in the third canto, it
fire.
is mentioned when this creation ends. So what happens? We have Mahavishnu, Garbhadaksha Vishnu, Shirodaksha Vishnu. When this Brahmand, concludes, the devastation happens. Then what happens? Anyone remembers? All the living entities enter into Mahavishnu. And then it is very interesting thing is mentioned. When they enter into Mahavishnu, they remain in agitated state. They remain in agitated state. I'm not sure if we had discussed and emphasized on this point there. And now here is mentioned, she was unagitated. What does it mean? Living entity remains in agitated state. Now why? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
They want to do some activities.
Okay. So I'll give the answer. What I answer is, so agitated state means, when do you become agitated? When do you become agitated? When do you become agitated? You want to do something, but it's not happening, which means your desires are not getting fulfilled, which means you're not getting to perform bhoga. 100% agree? Which means you're not able to engage in bhoga. आपकी भोग वृत्ति पूर्ण नहीं हो रही है, इसलिए agitated. So when it is mentioned, it remains agitated. Why? Because now they don't have a gross body. So they cannot fulfill their bhoga vritti. Now because they cannot fulfill their bhoga vritti, although they are with the Supreme Lord, in a transient state, they're not in a liberated state, they remain agitated. And for those agitated souls, the Lord recreates the creation. So what is the purpose of the creation then? The purpose of the creation then becomes The creation is a place which has been designed by the Lord to fulfill our bhoga vritti. The material world is a place for bhoga vritti, not the adhyatmic world. So while engaging in so dharma, artha, kama, traigunya vishaya veda. What is the subject matter of Veda? Traigunya. We talk about modes of material nature and also three paths: dharma, artha, kama. And what the second chapter of that verse says? What is it? Traigunya vishaya veda nisraigunya bhavarjunaha. Transcend this. Transcend to what? To attain moksha. What does Bhagavad Gita end with? Sarva dharman pratyaja mam ekam sharanam vraja. Aham tum sarva papebhyo moksha shami. So Bhagavad Gita ends with promise of moksha. Like that. So this place, this created world is a world for bhoga vritti, to fulfill our desires. And when that doesn't happen, a living entity becomes agitated. Therefore, Kanishta remains agitated because he has little bit dovetail. Therefore, Papa said, what Papa said, he didn't say prohibit. And the other previous session also I was making a point. Vedic scriptures does not talk about prohibitions. They talk about regulation. I believe in Bhakti Shastri class I was emphasizing the point. The Vedic scriptures does not talk about stop. Karmendriya samyamya ya aste manasa smaran indriyathan gunatma kartaham कहते हैं मिथ्याचारा सौच्यते. Who's externally trying to restrict his senses from engagement. But yaste manasasman, but his mind is thinking about sense objects. In the arthan vimudatmaha. Such a person is said to be vimudha, bewildered, atma, living entity. Mityachara sauchate, he is duplicitous. What is mityachara in English? Pretender. He is pretending. So, just want to clarify this point. You cannot prevent yourself from bhoga vritti. Do not artificially prevent yourself from bhoga vritti, but do regulated bhoga. Therefore, every aspect of a life, we are not stopped from eating. But what is said? You honor prasadam. So your bhoga vritti gets fulfilled. That is what Prabhupada said in English is dovetail. Dovetail. Somebody wants to have a woman association or emotional partner, somebody who can emotionally connect. Okay, get married. If you have an emotional need and you need somebody who can sit next to you and hear your Ram Katha, or hear your Hari Katha, or your Katha, get married. Then afterwards you realize, nobody is there to hear me. If you're wondering somebody's going to hear you, today's generation, who's going to hear? If you don't believe me, you go and look at your mother, father. Do that even talk at this age now? Father will be probably very busy with the smartphone. And there is a TV, then mother would be busy with the TV. Yes or no? Do you see them even sitting together and talking? ये वो कहता है ना इंग्लिश में interesting word honeymoon is a honeymoon period only, was short-lived. It doesn't happen like this. So anyway, so bhoga vritti, so regulated, dovetail, that's the whole idea. So agitated. When it is said she became unagitated, which means she was completely purified of her bhoga vritti. So living entity can only become unagitated, and that is what the second chapter, verse number 72, where Krishna speaks about, how all the rivers enter into the ocean, and the ocean is not disturbed. And it talks about the sage of a steady mind. And what is that? Ocean at the surface can have waves, but the ocean within is very deep and calm. That is the mind of a sage. This is the mind of a sage. So when it is said unagitated, pay attention to the word unagitated means she was entirely free. What do you mean by free? Which means purified. She became purified. Just like go back to first canto, Narada the boy. Narada says, I was not talkative. I was very disciplined and I have given up all childish activities. And then when we discuss that part, we quoted Vishnu Thakur. He categorically mentioned, the boy was not like that always. The boy became like this by serving the Bhakti Vedantas. So what it means? He became purified by serving. Nashtaparayashu abhadreshu nityam bhav. So through devotional service, we become purified. And just to conclude this point of agitation, And you all can notice as we are progressing ahead, our agitation would be reducing, which means it's very important for us to reflect. Our devotee has to be introspective. There is no meaning of it. If we're just gonna be we're gonna have a perspective where we have comments about everyone. Okay, that's your stage. We cannot, you have to grow. That's totally fine. You have to go through with that. But somewhere we have to become introspective. Now think about, am I still being agitated as I used to be before? I still become disturbed and angry, on small trivial issues that used to happen 5 years before. Then what has changed within you? What are you really doing? Are you even practicing bhakti seriously? So that gives us an impetus to apply ourselves sincerely. And we realize that there is a work to be done on me. Why am I worried about others? That is between them and the Lord. Let me fix my relationship with the Lord by fixing myself. So that's the idea about unagitated here as a flame of an undisturbed fire. This comes quite a few times in Bhagavad Gita also. Let's take one or two more verses. Text number 45. These are very important verses. You can read out. Prabhupada focusing on the husband-wife relationship. I'm not getting into that. Text number 45.
The daughter of King Vidarbha continued as usual to serve her husband, who was seated in a steady posture until she could ascertain that he had passed away from the body.
Next.
While
So
she
she was
was
serving her husband, and one day she was massaging the feet of the husband, and she realized the feet has become cold. And Prabhupada said, beautiful point. Text number 46, purport. The stoppage of blood circulation is perceived when the hands and feet lose heat. One tests whether the body is alive or not by feeling the heart's palpitations and coolness of the feet and hands. So she noticed the feet has become cold, which means there's no blood circulation happening now. Text number 47 to 49. The wife began to lament. And Prabhupada has beautiful purport how a disciple should lament when the spiritual master leaves the world. Text number 47, please read.
Translation. Being now alone and a widow in that forest, the daughter of Vidarbha began to lament, incessantly shedding tears.
All right, read the purport.
Purport. Figuratively, the queen is supposed to be the disciple of the king. Thus, when the mortal body of the spiritual master expires, his disciple should cry exactly as the queen cries when the king leaves his body. However, the disciple and spiritual master are never separated because the spiritual master always keeps company with the disciple as long as the disciple follows strictly the instruction of the spiritual master. This is called the association of
So
Vani.
this is Vani and Vapu. Text number 48. Translation.
O best of the kings, please get up, get up. Just see this world surrounded by water and infested with rocks and so-called kings. This world is very much afraid, and it is your duty to protect.
So she's lamenting, the husband, which is representing Guru, have left. The disciple is lamenting. Prabhupada writes in the purport in the middle. Unfortunately, when the Acharya disappears, rogues and non-devotees take advantage and immediately begin to introduce unauthorized principles on the name of so-called Swamis, Yogi, philanthropies, and whatnot. And then Prabhupada writes the last paragraph. The Acharya, the authorized representative of the Lord, establishes this principle, but when he disappears, things would again become disordered. The perfect disciple of the Acharya try to relieve the situation by sincerely following the instructions. At the present moment, practically the entire world is afraid of rogues and non-devotees. So this is a fact of life. It is always the case when Acharya leaves. It happened after Bhaktivinoda Thakur left, but fortunately because the Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was there, he continued. After Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur left, 1937 or 38, and then whole Gaudiya Math got disintegrated. And the court cases are still continuing even up to now, more than 70, 80 years. And then it took Abhay Charan Day, next 20 to 30 years, to prepare himself as Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and then he again reinstated. Otherwise, if it was not ISKCON, I don't think so any one of us would have heard about Lord Chaitanya. All the Gaudiya Math had spread all over Bharat. Even if ISKCON wasn't there, I don't think so Gaudiya Math had recovered and have doing anything much like that. So that's the point here, which is actually is obvious thing. Text number 49. That most obedient wife thus fell down at the feet of her dead husband, began to cry pitifully, and that's already for us. Thus the tears rolled down from her eyes. She then prepared a blazing fire with firewood and placed the dead body of her husband upon it. When it was finished, she lamented severely and prepared herself to perish in the fire with her husband. Prabhupada is in the purport. So this verse talks about Saha Marana, Sati Pratha. Last paragraph. This indicates that devotee's wife must be prepared to act in such a way. I mean, मतलब ये नहीं कि वो भी आग में कूद जाए, but must be prepared symbolically. Similarly, devoted disciples of the spiritual master would rather die with the spiritual master than fail to execute the spiritual master's mission. That's the idea. As the Supreme Personality Godhead comes down upon this earth to re-establish the principles of Dharma, so his representative spiritual master also comes for the same purpose. It is the duty of the disciples to take charge of the mission of the spiritual master and execute it properly. Otherwise, the disciples should decide to die along with the spiritual master. The point is, the mission should continue. You know, the followers should dedicate their life in fulfilling and continuing the mission rather than getting distracted. If you can't do it, then there's no point of living the life. That's the point is mentioned here. And the last verse for today, text number 41. So here, text number 50. So yesterday we read until 20th verse where Purañjana dies. And now we read about Purañjana taking birth as Vaidharvi, the daughter of King Vidarbha. He took birth as a daughter in the family of a king, got married to a king by the name of Malaya Dwaja, who was a great devotee, and he took to Vanaprastha stage and became a very, very advanced Vaishnava, and then he departed. So we saw all those relationships in that context. And now the wife is lamenting. The wife is left alone in the forest, and the wife is lamenting. Now the third part of the story will begin in this particular chapter, and that is mentioned in text number 51. Tatra purvataraha kashit Sakha Brahmana Atmava Santavyan Valguna Samna Tamaha Rudatim Prabhu. A new character is introduced by Narad Muni now. Narad Muni says, my dear Prachini Parishad, one Brahmana who was an old friend of King Puranjan came to that place and began to pacify the queen with sweet words. Now the story will continue with the Brahmana speaking to the queen. That we'll see it next time when we catch up. And this Brahmana is none other than Paramatma, the Supreme Lord, who comes to guide. So now spiritual master is not there, disciple is saying what to do. So the Lord directs from within. So that will be the discussion. So with that, we'll pause here. This is 51 verse. I believe this chapter has around 64 verses, 65 verses. So fine. So whenever we meet next time, so we'll not have next week. Today's Friday. So we'll meet after a week gap. So then we'll continue. I hope until then you'll remember the storyline. And the next chapter would be the last chapter of discussion with Prachini Varishat. 29th, right? Yeah. And huge chapter. Wow. Almost 90 verses. Huge chapter. So Narad Muni then will give summary. What was this allegory meant to be? And after this, Prachini Varishad episode will end, and then we'll come to the Prachetas. Prachetas we have not discussed. We just discussed about they went to the forest. All right. So we'll pause here. Thank you for your kind attention. Jagadaru Shila Prabhupada ki.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
So we have not
Dandasana
able
Prabhu.
to do Parasparam much because we got late. I just wanted to cover up the kind of topics here. Yes, Mother, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Pranam
Yes,
Prabhu.
please.
Thank you very much Prabhu. Very wonderful session as always. Prabhu, generally I am conditioned to fault finding. You know, if there is a very wonderful poster that comes, what I see first is, you know, either the timing is wrong or the date is wrong, whatever. You know, that is what meets my eye. Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
Yes, Mother, continue. Yeah.
Yeah. So how to give up this fault finding tendency, Prabhu? Because that's what meets my eye because of my conditioning. So I mean, how do I give up that, or should I ignore that, or you know, what is the solution? Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Dhanushana.
Okay, the last part was very fast. Looked like 10x. Okay. So if I understand the question is about fault finding, that's our conditioned nature that largely happens because of envy. Um, uh, Upadeshamrita mentions about that. What is that? Fifth shloka. How does it begin, the fifth shloka? Tashtay Swabhava Janita is the sixth shloka. The fifth shloka. Hidashanayadi Hidam Ipsita Sangalapta. That's the last line. What's the first line? It's about three types of devotees. NOI text 5, just give me the first word. Krishna is, Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta dikshasi chit pranita pesta vajantam ishan shushrum. Like that the verse goes on. So at the end it is said, you should take association of that person whose heart is freed. Hirdayam, what's the last line? Nindadi shunya adi hidam ipsita sangalabdha. So whose heart is free from finding faults, so that person association we should take. And Papa describes who is this person whose heart is free from finding faults. That is Uttama Adhikari. So it is but expected at Kanishta stage we would have that nature because we are conditioned into it. We have been doing all this while, and primarily it happens because of envy. The envy make it happen, you know. I'll give an example. Let's say the child. Even if the child makes a mistake, because the mother loves the child, she'll not be able to see the mistake. She'll not find the fault. Yes or no? She'll say, no, 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 no. She'll cover it up. And she'll say, no, ye so just hota hai, hota hai. She'll have all the reason to see this is naturally happening. Nothing much to worry about it. So why we do so, why we find faults is because of envy. So again, those who are self-introspective, those are introspective, not self-introspective, those who are introspective, whenever such situation would happen, they will immediately realize the envy, the snake of envy is rising again. I need to smash it. So I often tell devotees, if the snake of lust is rising, the snake of anger is rising, and when we realize it, we should hear about the topic. So if you go to, what is that? ISKCON Desire Tree. So I used to do it in the past for myself also. So I'll go there and I'll search for the topic of envy. Let's say I feel, I'm getting disturbed because of it. And then I'll hear for a few weeks or maybe a month or so to hear about the topic of envy, the dangers of envy, how to overcome envy, particularly His Holiness Radhana Swami Maharaj. There he has themes, and the themes, all these anathas are mentioned. And then there are hundreds of lectures around that. And then you hear. And then Maharaj would always mention the antidote for envy is seva. You serve that person towards whom you are feeling envy. With that envy, express gratitude. Practice this culture of expressing gratitude. See, one point is everything in this world is faulty. There is nobody who's going to be perfect. So if we're just going to be so short-sighted or narrow-minded, that we're just going to look at that one flaw or few flaws and keep on talking about it, keep on magnifying that, all the best. Um, Nothing going to change for anyone, but you're going to have a miserable life. So that individual will continue having a miserable life, even while in practicing bhakti culture, even while in Krishna consciousness, such a sublime and beautiful place, best opportunity. That fellow would look like as if, सुबह सुबह चार घूसे खा कर आया है. आपने देखा है ऐसे लोगों की शक्लों को? ऐसी पिटी हुई शक्ल लगती है. Why? Because the head is heavy. Head is heavy because the head is full with fault finding. And the beauty of such people are, they're expert in finding fault with others, but they just never see that there's fault within. So if in case we find ourselves in such a tamaguna state, again, what do we really pray to the Lord? The one thing that we can pray, Tesham Ivanu Kampatam Aham Agyan Ajam Tamaha. Lord says, when I'm merciful, Aham Agyan Ajam Tamaha, I destroy the darkness and ignorance from the heart of everyone else. Because your heart is anyways pure. There is all ignorance and darkness in the heart of every other devotee. Your heart is pure. So Krishna is saying, Tesham Ivanu Kampartham Aham Agyana Ajam Tamaha. I, by my causeless mercy, O Arjuna, I destroy in the hearts of all those, destroy the ignorance, Aham Agyana Ajam Tamaha. So ignorance and darkness from the hearts of everyone else. So don't worry, your prayers are heard. I have removed the faults from others. No, Krishna says, I'll remove from your heart. Because your heart has it. And it takes one to know one. So anytime your mind is tricking to find fault finding, Why you're able to see that? Because you have that. Otherwise, why would you be able to do that? So, as a devotees, I would say we should not get into this. It's very unfortunate. So, for example, Yamaraj is a pure devotee, yes or no? Among 12 Mahajans, and Prabhupada writes about him. He has a thankless service of doing what? Fault finding. It is his seva to find faults in others and judge them and award or punish them accordingly. Prabhupada says this is a thankless service. It's a very difficult service to perform. Similarly, when you become a teacher, you have to do that. So those who have a nature of finding fault become a teacher. At least you can dovetail that nature. Somewhere it will get purified. And when you become a teacher, when you have students, and then when that student will find faults in you, then you will reflect. अरे मैं इतना अच्छा व्यक्ति था, ये मेरे अंदर दोष क्यों ढूंढ रहा है? And then Tesham Ivanukampartam would begin to happen within you. Then you will realize, I'm just getting a reaction of my own action. What I did towards the parampara, my descendants are doing towards me. So therefore, preaching is very important. It also helps in purification. These are some of the things that I could add to it. All right, it's a big topic nonetheless. Thank you. Hare
Thank you so
Krishna.
much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Mata
Radha
ki
Rama.
jai. Anything else?
Hare
Brother
Krishna
Shan-
Prabhu, do you have time for one question?
Yeah. Question is
Okay.
our question.
So, Prabhuji, I totally agree with you on the point of introspection. But don't you feel that, as the time passes in our Krishna consciousness, maybe we don't get agitated by our material desires, but we get agitated because of seeing our anarthas. When we do a lot of introspection, we see, anarthas, and then we get more and more agitated because, you're not able to give it up and things like that.
Amar Jivana Sada Pape Rati. Bhaktivinoda Thakur expressed it that way. But there's a difference of that agitation. As far as my experience, I don't have any Shastra Praman for that, but I can speak from my experience. When we realize that, we become humble and we become more obedient, disciplined, and polite in our dealings. So that's not agitation, that's much needed. But again, when we are too much consumed by I, then you will get agitated thinking that, oh, how can I have this problem? I was supposed to be better, but how do I have this problem? So agitation would happen. Otherwise, this is not supposed to give agitation. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is describing about him. I'm worse than the stool or the worm in the stool. I mean, when I heard for the first time, I was picturizing it. What? How can you say that? I got disturbed by hearing it. I said, what kind of person is this? How can he even say like this about himself? This is so derogatory. I said, ये तो मैं कभी सोच नहीं सकता. This is unimaginable. So imagine, just by hearing, I became agitated. The one who's thinking about himself, how much agitated he should be. And that agitated person is asked to write Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then it should be filled with agitation only. No, it doesn't happen that way. So when we realize our anartha is actually supposed to make us humble, and we will become humble. Or maybe if you're not becoming humble, then we are too much caught up in I. We're wrongly oriented. This is my experience about it. Okay.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. That answered it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your question. Yes, Anand.
Always one in advanced devotee. It cannot be fixed his eye on the deities on the temple. So what is the meaning of
Which means your eyes will move everywhere. Once in a while, we'll also look at the deities. Therefore, men are asked to stand in the front. If women are put in front of the men, then you can only wonder what darshan the men will be taking. All right? That's the idea behind it. Hare Krishna. Yes.
You were talking about Prabhu, you're talking about emotionality and rationality. How can any practical tips to be rational and not be emotional?
No, I mean, this is your psychophysical nature. Guna karma, you've got it now. Just like you've got a physical form, there's a subtle body also. You've got a gross body and subtle body. So gross body looks like of a man, but that doesn't determine your manliness. What determines your manliness is your psychophysical, your subtle body. What is the nature of subtle body? because the gross body is entirely dependent on the subtle body. It cannot function independently. So it's your subtle body is functional like man or functional like a woman. That determines. So that has come from your guna and karma. So now you've got certain makeup now. So now in that situation, you have to choose the best varna and ashram for you to function. Therefore, concept of varna and ashram is there. Who is a brahmana? According to varnashrama principle, brahmana is one who can find his satisfaction, emotional gratification by reading Shastra. He does not need anyone. He can live alone, just recite shlokas, recite Shastra, read Shastras. He is content. He does not depend on anyone. Therefore, traditionally, as you know, Brahmanas, they don't would bother too much about their livelihood. You know, we read about from Gujarat, the great Vaishnava, Nasingha Mehta. He was not worried about it. We have Santukam from here. They were not worried about this thing. They don't depend on it like that. So that is Brahmana. Then there is Kshatriya. For Kshatriya to operate, to function, to take care of everyone, he needs a lot of inspiration. So Kshatriya cannot be a brahmachari. Therefore, when Devarat took a vow, why did the Devatas shower flowers on him? Mahabharat clearly mentions that. They were like, Arey, even we cannot be brahmacharis in the heaven. You are a Kshatriya Varna. You are one of the rares who have taken a vow for brahmacharya. Not that it was a psychophysical nature. That was a situational decision. It is not that he was born with that psychophysical nature. You know, that now after this Bhishma Pitama is not going to fight, he's going to live like a Brahmana. No, he was a Kshatriya. But because of the situation, he took that vow. Therefore, the Devtas showered flowers. This is Bhishma, which is very difficult to practice. Like that. So psychophysical nature. So they're allowed for polygamy for that purpose. Vaishya, who is dealing with money, he can't be like a Brahmana dealing with money, too much, material interaction. So he will also get into relationship who need it. The Shuddha cannot function about it. So you see, you're becoming more and more dependent on matter as you go down the order from Brahmana to Kshatriya to Vaishya to Shudra. So that's how it is. Okay. So understand our psychophysical nature. Of course, Krishna consciousness purifies it. That purification happens dependent on our Sharanagati. So if we are willing to recognize where am I and willing to work, then we can purify our psychophysical nature. Otherwise, we'll cause a lot of disturbance. If somebody of a womanly nature, psychophysical nature, joins brahmachari ashram, he'll cause turbulence there. He would depend a lot on emotional intake, give and take from everyone. And if he will not have emotional give and take, then he'll become agitated. And then he will say, this is wrong, that is wrong. Then he'll become disturbed. So study, understand your psychophysical nature. And if in case we still have a desire to join brahmachari ashram, for instance, for that, then accepting situation, act accordingly. Understand, weakness doesn't lie in the system. Brahmachari ashram functions in a certain order, a certain way. It is not for, of course, we can try to help you a certain way, but ultimately it's not about emotionally. Your emotionally, it has to come from, service. Isn't it Devamit Maharaj, beautiful lecture on it for a brahmachari, how to sustain a brahmachari life. Brahmachari, you may be from whatever background, you may have taste for Shastra or not. Then your relish and taste should come from service. You should engage and find that relish in service. And if you don't find that, the brahmachari would look for that rasa outside. And that rasa then eventually will come in relationship. And therefore, then they have to move out. And therefore, brahmacharis don't survive in America for that reason. First, they don't have enough engagements, which can really give that rasa like that. So they come with all good intentions, but long term they cannot. Plus, they didn't have a cultural training also background. And there had been a lot of emotional vacuum in their life because most of them don't have parents. They're raised by a single mother or single father, so they have a lot of emotional vacuum. So when they join brahmachari ashram, they have that need for emotional connect, but brahmachari ashram is not designed for that. So they suffer a few years, and then they feel like, hey, it isn't happening. So they change. So therefore, in India, it's still more stable. You're given, several years before you're put in any situation to run the thing by yourself. The moment you become leader, then you're tested in and out. But then you have to be on a Brahminical platform to function. You can't act on a Kshatriya platform for long. If you only keep on doing administration management, then your life will become dry. There'll be a vacuum, and then you need some relationship to fulfill that vacuum. So therefore, we say, Brahmachari, okay, spend as many years in the association. We celebrate their birthdays. We celebrate their success stories. They distribute books. We celebrate. We have an event for them. We acknowledge their success and whatnot. So they feel, nourished. But till the time, we should apply ourselves strictly, because sooner or later, situation will come where you'll be asked, okay, go out, do prachar. And at that point of time, it may become tricky then. Therefore, it is not even asked for the younger ones to go out and do it, because they will not sustain. This is all the things that happen. This is all calculations that happen. Okay? We should pause.